The Swedish melody isn't what people think. Welcome everybody to the new Swedish Academy, the best Swedish language school, and I'm gonna tell you why we are the best school. Well, you have to pay attention. It is very simple. We actually care about people learning the language. It's not just about giving tons of information, tons of lessons, tons of content, empty content, but actually giving things that you will actually use, not just random poems and words that you might never use or never heard. I've randomly heard here and there some online lessons. Actually, I try not to, but I end up here and there seeing small videos where they teach you this amazing idiom, and I think I've never heard that word being said by anybody in a real life situation. And it is fun, and people think it's fun, and maybe it is fun, but if you're not gonna use it, try to become good at the language first. There are so many things that I see and I think, okay, that's alright, but if the person is not autodidacted, he will not be able to catch it and learn by himself. Anyways, there's so many things I can say, but the main point is that I got students that come to me and they've been studying in the government schools and so on, and they have reached levels B, C, and so on, which are somewhat advanced, and they are actually very, very basic, and I have no idea how they got that to that level. So it seems like people are just given granted, just like they get passports, they just get black belts in Swedish. Well, they don't know how to make a submission, they don't know how to actually speak. It's like you get a black belt in jiu-jitsu or karate and you actually don't know how to fight. It is pathetic. Well, the Swedish melody, at the end of the day, it is much more simple, and you can actually do it. I want to encourage people to actually learn it, and to learn it well, not speak like a foreigner. That's the last thing you want to do, and it seems like people in Sweden are reluctant to say things the way they should be. And the Swedish melody actually is very simple if you know actually how to do it. Unfortunately, nobody really knows how to do it, and I have personally found the secret key to the Swedish pronunciation. And now I'm going to talk about this famous Swedish melody. The Swedish melody isn't what people think. Nobody knows how to teach it. Nobody knows because nobody actually have thought about it. It seems like people don't care. People hope that people just get it. They hope that you have a musical ear, and some people do. Or maybe you speak a language that's similar, and some people do, and they are lucky. Or they speak in a place where they have no other chance but listening to people who are very strict, and this doesn't really happen a lot, or they are young. Well, another point is that they are so nice, and they are told duktig, you are duktig, meaning you are a good person, you are a good student, even though they aren't, because people are afraid to say the way it is to be politically correct. So it ends up being so that people do not get corrected because people are politically correct, and they end up speaking very bad. Some people are luckily melodic and have a good ear, and depending on their own language, there are some advantages. For example, if you speak French, you have the R, the R, which is good, but only in the south of Sweden. Or if you speak German, there's many advantages which are related to the German family of languages, which includes a lot of grammar and vocabulary, but also the pronunciation can be a little bit helpful sometimes. And if you speak Persian, they have the which can be helpful in that particular moment. And also, Swedish is not a language where you have to speak quickly to be good. In other languages, if you speak quickly, that's a sign that you are good. But in Swedish, it's a sign that you are not good, necessarily. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I can speak good Swedish, thinking that they are going to show off being good, but actually they show that they cannot speak slowly, because you have to speak slowly and show that you are good in Swedish speaking slowly. Doesn't mean that people do not speak quickly, that also happens, but you have to know how to speak slowly. And Persian people speak slowly, and they have the sound that most languages don't. Of course, there's many other things that Persian doesn't have in common with Swedish, but that's just some example on things that I notice that foreigners do well or not. Now, of course, if you speak Scandinavian, that is Norwegian or Danish, then it's going to be easier to learn Swedish, way easier, even for Danish, because Norwegian, of course, sounds a lot closer to Swedish than Danish, and Danish is a bit rougher if you know about it. If you don't, then you might find out about it later. But for Danish people, it is easy to make the Swedish pronunciation if they make an effort. But many think that the Swedish pronunciation is just the melody that goes up and down like a song. And sure, it kind of is like that. And they try to make the sentence fit in that, let's call it, melody. So they put the sentence in what they think the melody should sound like. And sure, that's reasonable, that's logical, but it doesn't really work at the end of the day. It might work for some if you really work hard on it, but I have the key, and the key is actually quite simple, and it's something that is actually touched in a page in the many books, one page, and they say this, but actually that is the key, and it is everywhere. It should be in every page, and you will hear it me talk about it every time in every lesson, because it is super important. There is another way, of course, and this is not the secret key yet, but this other way is a great tip: transition the melody to the accent. Many try speaking Swedish with its accent, or any other language you want to learn. So if you're learning Russian, you try to speak Russian with the Russian accent, English with the English accent, and so on. So you make an effort, however you think is the right way, but you give up. You give up, and you do it quickly because it feels weird, and you maybe feel embarrassed, and maybe you feel tired, and you feel emotionally attached to your own accent because you don't get it, and then you notice that you are not getting it right correctly well, and then you just kind of give up, get tired of doing it. And I found this is mostly because of a psychological reason, that they are emotionally attached to their native accent. So a lot of people are at different levels good in, let's say, English or Swedish for this particular case. And what makes somebody pronounce a language good, and what makes you stop? I've met people who speak really good English, and they stop to the point where you can hear where they are from. And why can you hear where they are from? And I think that is a conscious, emotionally attached idea they have to their own country, that if they speak fully without an accent, they feel that they are betraying their country. This is a new idea for you. You might say, no, come on, you're crazy. But since this is my video, you just listen to it, and later you'll ponder about it, and you'll know that I'm right. A lot of people keep that little bit of an accent, and some people don't, but maybe they are not as much attached emotionally to that country and identifying themselves with their country. One thing is loving your country, another thing is identifying yourself with it, and that's where we have the problem. Now, first I want to talk to you about the two ways to get rid of this mental issue, let's say, when it comes to the accent, and then I'll give you the secret to the Swedish melody. Well, we first need to tackle the emotional reasons what makes you go back to your accent when you try to work on the Swedish accent, for example. Otherwise, if you know the key to the Swedish accent, you might just go back anyways to your accent, and we do not want you to speak with a foreign accent. No. people might ask, why? That's not nice. That's not nice. Why do you say that? Well, there are many local Swedish accents, and all of them are right. Okay? So try to work on all of them before you do the wrong thing, which is talk like a foreigner. Alright? Because if you want to talk like a foreigner, then you might as well do not speak with good grammar, good accent, because they will understand you, right? But some will not understand you, because in Sweden they will ask you all the time, Vad säger du? Vad säger du? What are you saying? What are you saying? And you are going to feel bad about it. And that's why it's important to have a good accent. But if you think it doesn't matter that I don't have a good accent, then with that logic, you will also think it doesn't matter if you have bad grammar, because they might understand you. And with that logic, you might think, well, you know what, I will just use my hands or speak English, so why learn at all? So if you're going to want to learn, the best thing is to learn it as close as possible to the real thing. And actually, many Swedish people do not know how to teach, because many Swedish people or locals to any language do not really know why they sound the way they sound, why the language is the way that it is. I recently spoke with a friend, and his girlfriend, who is Swedish, could not teach him. And that is very normal and understandable. So here we have make fun of your accent. That's number one. One way to detach yourself emotionally from your own accent is to make fun of people who speak with your native accent. Okay? So, for example, if you're an Italian who wants to learn the English accent, the best way for you to get rid of the Italian accent is, in order to detach yourself emotionally from identifying yourself with the Italy and the Italian accent, is to make fun of it. That way you go far away from it. So you start to speak like this, but the other day, and so on, right? So you notice that, for example, you notice that you finish the sentences or the words with this, and so on. Then, as you make fun of it, number one, you take distance from that accent. And number two, you start noticing, okay, how can I make more fun? Okay, I add this little thing that we do. And when you add that little thing that you do, that's typical Italian, you know that that's the typical thing that you should stop doing yourself. As an Italian, to sound clearer when you speak, try to speak English. Alright? So that's one point. And of course, even if you try your best, it's possible that you might not ever sound like a native. So don't worry about never ever losing your accent, because you might not, but you can try as much as possible. And that's what we teach you here. Well, that's number one. You'll become an expert at what you do wrong, and you'll learn how to stop it, of course. And another thing, point number two, is to speak in your language with a Swedish accent. For example, if you are an American learning English, well, you can learn in Swedish, you can speak in English with the Swedish accent. Why? Because if you want to speak Swedish, and you start speaking Swedish with a Swedish accent, you're gonna feel weird. You're gonna feel like, you know what, it's weird. That's not me. You know what? So you go back to speaking English with the American accent, because it doesn't feel natural. So since it doesn't feel natural to speak Swedish with the Swedish accent, well, if you start speaking English with a Swedish accent like this, if you start speaking English with a Swedish accent, it is quite weird that you are doing this. So then when you transition and start speaking Swedish with a Swedish accent, it's not gonna be so weird anymore, because you're actually speaking a new language, right? And then the transition will come with ease. And after you've done it in English, number one, it's gonna be fun to do it. You're gonna have a laugh with your friends, with your girlfriend, or by yourself, speaking English with a Swedish accent, even if it sounds closer to Norwegian perhaps in this particular example. But the point is that you stop caring about this attachment that you might have with your language, which makes you feel embarrassed and weird when you speak Swedish with a Swedish accent. That's what we want to get rid of first. So number one, that is to make fun of your accent, your own accent, not with malicious intent. So don't make fun of your people as to bully them. Just think to yourself, making fun of the accent, and then you're gonna start thinking, wow, it was so easy to get rid of that accent. Why do they keep making that mistake? Number 2, remember, speak in your language with the Swedish accent. And that way, of course, as I said, it is gonna be easier to transition and start speaking Swedish with the Swedish accent. And now finally, what is the key to the Swedish melody? We now know that it's not this, trying to make the sentence fit in the melody. Well, how did I find out about it? Well, English is not my native language, and although it's not perfect, you might notice, oh, he's not an American, or he's not a native English speaker. It is pretty good, okay? So I've worked on it, and that same way you can work on your Swedish. Well, I was actually living in China, and I was learning Chinese, which at that point was my 6th language. And I noticed that in Chinese there are the famous Chinese tones. So every single word has a tone, and every word is one syllable. So it's either, for example, if we talk about you, I, he, she, you, and so on, right? And I noticed that's interesting. That is very interesting that they have the tones like this. What if I can use the Chinese idea of tones and put it in the Swedish words? How would that fit? And then I figured the Swedish key, and that is that there's always one syllable that is stretched. Now, I've told this, if you're a Swedish person listening and copying my ideas out of curiosity, which probably everybody will, because from now on this will be the way everybody will start teaching Swedish, and I know this. And they might change the name here and there just so people don't know that they copied from the New Swedish Academy, but you all will know it is from here. Now, you basically stretch one syllable. I've spoken to Swedish people and they say no, and then I explain to them and they say, wow, I never thought about it. And that's how it always ends. I never thought about it. So you always stretch one syllable. So before I go through the examples, I want to say that many of my students are taught in their other schools that, well, it depends if it's like a soft letter that follows a soft vowel, a hard vowel. In my school, in my way, in the New Swedish Academy, we don't bother about it because it has so many exceptions that it's silly, and they get so confused that we don't look at it like that. We look at it by syllables, and in particular the vowel in the syllable. All right, so what we do is simply we stretch the vowel. We stretch the vowel. Now, it doesn't matter who you're going to ask, they will 100% after a bit of denial agree with me. They will agree with me and they will say, no, you're funny. Well, we don't stretch it like that. We don't stretch it like that. Now, we are exaggerating the stretch because we need to get as far away as possible from the way a person who is new to the language speaks. All right, so that's what we want to do right now. And number 1, get away from doing it quickly. Number 2, get used to doing it slowly. And number 3, we're gonna find also a middle ground. So first we stretch to get the feeling of how it feels to stretch, of how it feels to get the accent, and then we're gonna go back. So it doesn't matter if people laugh at first, but you feel it. My students are really amazed. If you go to the first video in our Facebook about where we had like a Chinese student, she had been living for 3 years in Sweden, and in one class, just by telling her, you do have tones and you do in a way stretch in Chinese. Think about it like this when you speak Swedish. And in one lesson she started to pronounce things so much clearly that it's crazy. And as I said, the school didn't care, didn't help, just tells everybody that they are great while they are not doing a good job. So it is simple. Now let's look at this. First syllable, first syllable, first syllable, stretch, stretch, stretch. So the green color, as I usually teach in my lessons, we stretch it. Green color, we stretch. So what I could do is also write several copies of the letter. So here is bara. So it doesn't matter if you're from the south and you say bara, or in the north or Stockholm bara. We do stretch. We never say in Swedish bara, bara. No, we say bara. Okay, and then next we have prata, which means to speak, and then we have kolla, to check, have a look, check as in have a look, tita, to look, tola, to speak. It's never tola, tita, kola, prata or prata. And right now we're not even talking about how the A sounds, because the A sounds like oh many times, most of the times. Alright, so we're not even focusing on it right now. Sure, that is part of the pronunciation, but the melody is what we're looking at in this video. So we have here kola, tita, tola, inte. Here I have both the I and the N, because in this case when there's a vowel and the N, in Swedish we do pronounce the N. It's not like French ong or Spanish ong. No, it's N. We do not jump the N, and Italians are good at this. N. Well, in Swedish we do accentuate the N. Inte, utan. So inte is not, tala is talk, utan without, viktigt is not viktigt, 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 viktigt. So it doesn't matter if you say it quickly, you keep the proportion of the first syllable stretched. Viktigt, viktigt, viktigt. So imagine going down and up. Viktigt, viktigt. So you can do it fast and still go down and up. Viktigt, viktigt, never viktigt, viktigt. And then absolute. Now here is a word with 3 syllables, and this is an example from all the words here, because ideally here is 2 syllables, 2 syllables, 2 syllables, and here more than 2. Here in this color with this background are the exceptions to the rule, and there's more exceptions, but as you see the exceptions are way less. So absolute, you can hear people say absolute or absolute or absolute or both, because it's more than 2 syllables. All right, and this is a phenomenon that we see in Swedish. And here we have ganska, ganska, ganska. It's not ganska, it's ganska. Veka, veka. It's not veka, it's veka. Månad, månad, not monad. Ångra, ångra, not ångra. Sita. You can say sita, sita, sita. Exaggerate, of course, but never sita. Träna, träffa, tänka, tanka. Träffa, to meet, träna, to train. Tanka, to think. Tanka, to fill up, like fill up your car with fuel. Rätta, to correct. Rätta. Älska, to love. Före, före, before. Efter, after. Många, many. Mycket, many. Många can be much, or much can be many. I mean mycket. And then prova, prova. Let's do it like, then we have prova, prova, not prova. And then here we have some exceptions where this second syllable is stretched. You never say I dog, you say I dog. So the first one is quick, I, and then dog. Igår, today, yesterday. Förstå, understand. Bestå, contain, contain of, consist of. And then we have here with 3 or more. And again, first syllable is stretched more. So here, first syllable we stretch, first syllable, second syllable, and here more than 2 syllables we stretch the first one, but not always. Here's more. It can depend a little bit more, but it also depends, because oftentimes when words are consist of more than 2 syllables, sometimes they are basically a combination of a couple words together. All right, so we have here anpassa, anpassa, It's not anpassa och anpassa. It's anpassa. Fortfarande. Företag. Fortfarande is still. Anpassa is adapt. So you have to adapt to Sweden. Företag, company. Företag. Like a business. Business type company. Not person, but business. Föredrag, like a speech. You do a speech. A seminar. Lägenhet. It's an apartment. It's not lägenhet. No, lägenhet. And here we have in the middle behöver, to need. Behöver. It's not behöver or behöver. No, it's behöver. It's never besluta or besluta. No, it's besluta. And here we have promenera. Third vowel. Syllable. And here interessant. Interesting. And then absolute. Okay, it is repeated here. So I at one point did change it here because it's 3 syllables, but you get the point. There's many words with 3 syllables, and I also noticed that many of the 3 or 4 syllable words that finish with era, imponera, like impress, imponera, interessant, they tend to be Latin words that we also have in English, to impress. Imponera, importera, to import, exportera, to export, and so on, right? So I noticed that these words that are international, let's say, they do have in the era the stretch. Let's call it like that, the stretch. So in the New Swedish Academy, we learn that the Swedish melody is created by stretch. Every time you say a sentence and you stretch these words, we get a melody all of a sudden. Is this not enough proof? This is just the beginning. Alright, so here we have a sentence, a very, very unusual and weird sentence that I just made up with some of the words that we have here on the list. And it's not about the content in this particular case, it is about the melody. So basically, here we have 1 syllable, 1 syllable, 2 syllables, 2 syllables, 2 syllables, 1 syllable, 1 syllable, 2 syllables, 1, 1, 2. Now, there's many words that have 1 syllable in Swedish, and it's funny because in Chinese it is similar. In Chinese, many words are only 1 syllable, most of the words, right? And just make a tone. It's called tone. But in Swedish, since it is 1 syllable that is stretched, I don't call it a tone. Otherwise, you could think that every syllable has a tone, but it's 1. So I call it stretch. I don't call it a tone. Okay? So we have here, it happens that when all the words are just 1 syllable, for example, jag vill inte, I want not, meaning I don't want. Jag vill inte. You can also stretch one of the 1 syllable words, either jag or vill, it doesn't matter. Here it depends on what you emphasize. If you are only saying I don't want, you can say I don't want, because he wanted, she wanted, they wanted, but I mean, they don't want, but I don't want. So now I'm emphasizing that's me and not them. But let's say that he thought, she saw, he played, he listened, he could, but I want not. So I'm emphasizing here the verb want, and I would say jag vill inte, like I don't want. So you will hear both, but it usually depends sometimes if the person who speaks is aware on what they are focusing on, yes. But either way, you will notice that 1 is stretched. Now this information is not just for you to say wow, it's for you to use it. And when you use it, you're going to be like, wow, even more. Now, what's going to happen after you just heard this new revelation for you? And even if you are Swedish, this is a revelation for you 100%, because it is always like this. And people laugh at me sometimes, and then they just are quiet about it because they know I'm right. And some other people right away, they are like, wow, because they are not used to somebody coming up with these type of things. People are used to things being the way they are, and being told that it is like that because that's how they told us, and I will never want to think about it. So since I came with a new idea, some people laughed. Either way, let's go to the sentence. So the sentence here in English is, of course, wrongly written because I'm just trying to literally translate word by word. So I want not speak without people listen. It's important. Meaning, I don't want to speak without people listening to me. That is important. So, silly sentence, let's say. But let's see how it works when we use the stretching here. Jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar. Det är viktigt. Okay? So jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar. Det är viktigt. So you see, at first it might sound weird. And people will say, well, that's weird. Swedish people will tell you that's weird. But then when you keep doing it and you master it, they will not even believe that this is what you did. So jag vill inte. So let's stretch also vill. Okay? And it will be like this. Jag vill inte prata utan. So it sounds weird when you are like basically bouncing. Na 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 na. Jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar. Det är viktigt. You can add here för mig, to me. Maybe not to you, but för mig, to me, right? So let's see. Jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar. Det är viktigt för mig. Or för mig, depends on what we emphasize. För mig. Det är viktigt för mig, right? You can say it both ways here because both are one syllable words. And here, they are all two syllables. Jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar på mig. Eller lyssnar på mig. On me, listen to me. Or just listen. That is important for me. Det är viktigt för mig. Det är viktigt. You can say det är viktigt. Or you can say det är viktigt. So I usually tell people, that's why I make it green, that the word är, which means is, it is, or to be, to always stretch it, not because it is always stretched, but because you might be lost sometimes and think, oh, what should I stretch now? Oh my God, what should I stretch? So see it as an anchor. See it as an orientation mark. So you might not know what to stretch, but if you say the word add, then you stretch it just to slow down the sentence. All right. What's good about this, instead of the logical thing, which is that many foreigners see this as a hindrance, as a problem to stop, what happens is that foreigners, they want to sound smart and they say this, jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar, and then they are quiet because all of a sudden they don't know how to continue and they sound stupid. Now I'm of course exaggerating, they don't sound stupid, but at the end you want to sound smart but you don't do it, you don't manage because you stop. For example, jag vill inte prata utan att folk, and then lyssnar, det är viktigt för mig. So what happens here? They say it quickly because they thought they were gonna sound good, but they didn't think through the whole sentence because they still lack vocabulary and so on, so they stop. So when you stretch each syllable here, it actually gives you time to think about what you're gonna say next. So we're killing two birds with one stone. We are not just stretching it, which makes you sound right, but you're also giving yourself room to think about what you're gonna say next. Okay? Så jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar. Det är viktigt för mig. Okay? Jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar. Det är viktigt för mig. Jag vill inte prata utan att folk lyssnar. Det är viktigt för mig. Or you can stretch för. Det är viktigt för mig. Det är viktigt för mig. Alright? So, this is how it is. And you do it once, you do it twice, you do it twice, you do it 3 times, you do it every day, and you are gonna get the melody. Now all of a sudden, it's not about, is the melody na 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 na, or is the melody na 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 na. How is it? I'm confused. I'm gonna get the melody wrong. Now you don't get the melody wrong because the melody is automatically created when you stretch. See here, you vill inte. This inte, that's where the melody was created. We stretch. Jag vill inte prata utan att lyssna. And here we have utan att folk. So here we didn't stretch utan att folk. Utan att folk. Utan att folk. Utan att folk. Alright? So that is the basic idea of the Swedish melody. This is something that we practice all the time in the longer versions of the course, in the webinars. In the quick course, I don't really focus a lot on it, but I do actually say it a lot. Not all the time, but I do say it a lot. So why is this important? Because to speak correctly will make you feel better, will allow you to get better jobs. You will feel like you belong in society. You will, for that reason, also like people. People will like you more naturally, and you will also appreciate and like the country more. And you will feel like actually wanting to talk to people, because when you do something right, it is fun to do it, and you want to do it more. Simple as that. People want to stress it, people want to doubt it, people want to say things that sound good. Like, it doesn't matter how you sound, it doesn't matter, we still love you. But society, in reality, this does not work that way. It doesn't matter how you twist it. I know, I've been a foreigner in many countries, I've learned many languages, I spoke many languages badly, and I know how it feels. It feels bad. People will say, yeah, it's okay, it's okay. A native will say it's okay, but a native doesn't know how it feels when it's not okay. So he tells you it's okay, and you go out and try to speak with people, and you feel it's not okay. And then you go back to that person that loves you, and it's gonna tell you, it's okay, yeah, you sound good, nobody cares, but you care, because you know that it feels wrong, you know that it feels bad, and you have to improve it. And we are the only school that actually really wants you to improve, because I know, I've been there, and I want you to not be stuck and actually move and get ahead as quickly as possible. And there's many more reasons why it is important, but you will feel good about it, and you, as you see results, you will want to actually keep learning. When you don't see results, you're gonna hate the language and don't want to speak the language. Maybe you're gonna speak English with natives, and maybe you're not even gonna like the people or society, and you want to just leave instead of wanting to improve. So it's either left or the right way, and the new Swedish Academy is the right way. That's why we are the new Swedish Academy. We're fixing the problems. So another thing which is part of what I just included is you're gonna like the language and the culture and the country when you speak it better. But even before you speak it well, try to love the country and the language. Now, don't confuse liking it, because you might not like many things. But when you love it, let's say, not need to be too emotional about it, but let's say when you care for it and try to understand the culture, the songs, why people do laugh at things, then you are going to feel better and be more encouraged to learn the language. So that is about the Swedish melody. Remember, the new Swedish Academy is the place where we started talking about this, revolutionized the language learning system in school, because in this case it's about Swedish, but I do have a language course in another place where I teach with more than 200 techniques on how to learn languages. Some are psychological and some I have shared in this course. And these have been specific to the Swedish language. Now, there's much more to learn. This is probably, if you're not a teacher copying my techniques, then you are just at the beginning. So get the course, learn with us, and you're welcome. This is the new Swedish Academy. We have the key to the Swedish pronunciation.